What is up, my fellow mobile gamers? In today's video, we got our tier list for the weapons in Mighty Doom. Like and subscribe for more amazing mobile gaming content. All right, let's go over the first one we got right up here is the rocket launcher. So the rocket launcher is a secondary weapon. I really like that it has the explosive damage, probably basically like the best secondary weapon early game. For new players, this is a really good weapon that you can kind of start off with. Although once you do get to later game, it really starts to not be as good as some of the other secondaries that you will acquire. I still think it's a very viable option. For our tier list, I'm going to put it in the A because I think it's very well above average. So the way this is going to be is S, A, B, and C, C being the worst, B kind of being like below average, A kind of being above average, and then S kind of being obviously very, very OP, very, very strong. Next one we have is the Gauss Cannon. Now the Gauss Cannon is another one that's kind of like, it's pretty strong in a sense for what it is, but it's not like super duper overpowering. It's another secondary weapon, pretty decent weapon. I know a lot of people really like this, and I'm gonna put it in the A. But it's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of hard to say. It's like in between. I guess if we had to do this, I would say that the Gauss Cannon, I would personally put it as like an average, but I definitely think it's not below average. So for that instance, I'm putting it in the A. Next up, we have, I would say this is the best secondary weapon, the Ballista. I mean, this thing is absolutely insane. Deals a blast of concentrated energy, dealing extra damage to demons weak to plasma. The AoE damage on this is amazingly insane. 100%, I'm putting this in the S. I feel like the Ballista is a better version of the rocket launcher because you can just hit so many enemies at an instance, especially when you get like the special power-ups for it, and you can kind of make it go and pierce through the enemies, and you can just kind of almost take out the whole entire room if you have it angled right. Next up, we got the Super Shotgun. This is another secondary weapon, arguably another amazing secondary weapon. I'm putting this in the S tier. If you go ahead and you pair up the combat shotgun as your main weapon and then have your super shotgun as your secondary, I mean, the burst damage, having two shotguns for two different weapons is really, really powerful. It helps you kind of clear out enemies when they get really close. Just because it's so bursty that it's almost like an insta-kill at point blank range. And you also have the special ability that you can get, the roll, where it actually does a meat hook. So it actually has a chain that will go out and kind of pull you towards the enemies. So if they are far away, you can kind of get in close and do a ton of damage. Definitely, I would say this is another really strong weapon, super overpowered, S tier, 100%. Next up we have is the chainsaw. Now the chainsaw has a gimmicky special ability to it where you can go ahead and pretty much make bosses immobile and they can't do damage to you, they can't move, they pretty much just stay stationary and they don't do anything. So it's a cool effect. The problem is the chainsaw doesn't really do a lot of damage and it's really not good for anything else. So like single target damage when you're going through a room and trying to clear it out, it just, I don't know, I feel like it's not as strong as some of the other ultimate abilities. I feel like this is one of the weaker ultimates. I'm gonna put it in the B area because I think this is kind of just below average. Next ultimate ability we have is the BFG 9000. Now the other thing I want to say is I feel like the ultimates in this game, they're not like super amazing. There's not like one that I feel is like clear, cut and dry and like well above the rest. For the BFG, this one has a huge fireball and it just does a bunch of damage, weak to plasma. So any demons that are weak to plasma, it does additional damage. But the thing about this is you can kind of clear almost an entire room with it because there's so much AoE damage on this. I mean, it just goes right down the entire lane. Now, the problem with this though is the weapon, it takes forever to charge. Out of all the ultimate weapons, this one has the longest cooldown And because of that, you only really get to use it maybe once, maybe twice in a run, if that, depending on how fast you can charge it up. But really, I mean, there's other ultimates where you can get them off at least 2-3 times in one run, whereas this BFG, it takes a long time for the cooldown. I still think it's very powerful and above average. I'm putting it in the A. The next thing we have is the sword, the Crucible. You're moving around the map. You can't control it. It's kind of computer controlled, but you are basically invincible once you go ahead and activate this ultimate. Your character's bouncing around the room, doing damage, slicing people with the sword, and you can't take any damage. You're invincible. You're not taking any damage, which is really good. I think that's a really powerful ability. I just think that, like, for certain instances, it's not like as strong as it could be. Better than the other ultimate ability. Like the Crucible, I would say, is better than the Chainsaw. And then finally, our last ultimate ability we have is, what is this thing called? I can't pronounce this, the umlunguPhambene, the thing that shoots the tri-directional volleys. I was using this for a while and it really isn't as good as I thought it would be. Unfortunately, I think this is like a B. I think this is below average. I would say that like the BFG and the Crucible are the two best ultimates we have currently. Well better than the Chainsaw and this umlunguPhambene thing. Next up, we have for our basic weapon, we have the chain gun. This is the Gatling gun, 100%. If you don't know, this one is amazing. Definitely putting this in the S area. One of the most broken basic weapons you can get in this game. It does so much single target damage. Once it goes ahead and it starts charging up, it's insanely fun. The cool thing about this is, like, it starts off with very low damage, but it's shooting so fast that it actually does more damage than what you think. So like the base damage is only like 50 or 60. It's very low, but you got to figure every single bullet that's hitting is hitting for that amount. And once you do go ahead and start powering up your gear and increasing your overall damage, the chain gun hits like an absolute freight train, especially for bosses. This is amazing for bosses. You melt them in seconds. Plasma rifle. Now this is the very unique basic weapon because this is actually the only basic weapon that we have that deals extra damage to enemies weak to plasma. All of the other basic weapons we have are good against the ballista types, but this is the only one that has that elemental damage to it. So because of that, I'm putting it in the S because it's pretty much the most unique weapon, basic weapon in this game because of that instance. You're always gonna face enemies that are weak to plasma. We have the burst rifle. This is really good early game because it's better than the starting basic weapon you have, but it's definitely very weak compared to a lot of the other basic weapons. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna have to put this in B. I think it's definitely below average. Other one we have is the starting one, and that is the heavy cannon. I think this is by far the worst weapon in the game. You start off with it, it's very basic. It does hardly any damage, doesn't really have any special effects to it that are better than anything else. Finally, the other main weapon we have, our basic weapon, is the combat shotgun. 100,000,000,000,000,000,000,000%, arguably one of the best weapons in this game, putting it in the S. The combat shotgun is so strong. It gives you tons of versatility because it not only can do a lot of burst damage up close, but it also can have a huge spread. In fact, if you go ahead and you start taking a lot of those spread shot upgrades to it, you basically can rain hell with the bullets. And also, if you put the bounce effect on it, oh my gosh, you got a spreadsheet of bullets just going all over the map, and it is a ton of fun. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. Comment whatever you agree with or disagree with. It is always greatly appreciated. Hit the like button, subscribe. I'll see y'all later. Peace.